Hey there, cozy builders. My name is Sam, and welcome to my Tiny Glade series. In this series, I take inspiration from either the daily Tiny Glade pre-builds or real historical buildings from around the world, and I try and create a beautiful scene within a 1-hour time frame. Then I add some fast-forward magic and share a few fun tidbits related to the build. Today, I'm working off the prompt Gnome Village, and I thought I would talk about the whimsical history of gnomes. Gnomes are described as a small magical creature of folklore who are the guardians of nature, hidden treasures, ancient secrets, and potentially more famously known as the guardians of your Aunt Judy's garden. They are typically toddler-sized in stature, with a long beard, a twinkle in their eye, and a pointed hat perched proudly on their head. The first person to really define gnomes as earth spirits was a Swiss Renaissance doctor and alchemist named Philippus Areolus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, who famously went by the name Paracelsus. Paracelsus was a rebel of his era. He often challenged academic norms, burning old medical texts, trusting lived experiences over tradition, and became a pioneer of early chemistry and medicine. And while there's no solid evidence that Paracelsus himself acted bombastically, his loud, radical rejection of traditional medicine kind of fits. During the 1500s, most medical treatments were based on ancient Greek ideas, especially the four humors theory, where people believed that illness was caused by imbalances in their blood, phlegm, black bile, or yellow bile, and thus these bodily fluids and treatments often included things like bloodletting, purging, or herbal mixtures based on astrology or symbolism. However, Paracelsus shifted most of his medicine practice away from ancient theories towards a more scientific, chemical understanding of the human body and disease. He replaced the old idea that sickness came from imbalanced humors with the idea that external agents such as toxins or chemical imbalances caused disease. He introduced minerals like mercury and sulfur into medicine, which was highly controversial at the time as they were known poisons, and went against Greek physicians whose teachings had ruled medicine for over 1,000 years. With all that said, Paracelsus was not without whimsy. His practices also blend astrology, alchemy, and spiritual beliefs into his medicine. This belief of myth and science made him hard to categorize and easy to dismiss by academics of the time. So how does he relate to gnomes? Though he never saw it published, Paracelsus' book on elemental spirits eventually introduced the word gnomes, or at least a version of it, and other mythical beings into Western literature in the 16th century. His book titled The Book of Nymphs, Sylphs, Pygmies, Salamanders, and Other Spirits adapted ancient mythological beings into a more systematic, alchemical worldview, which meant seeing nature not only through science, but through symbolism, spirit, and a deep connection to invisible elemental spirits and their relationship to nature, the four classical elements, and the human world. He categorized nymphs into 4 sections with corresponding natural elements and described them as such. Sylphs, the spirits of air, rode the winds across mountain tops and whispered through the leaves. They were quick, light, and clever, beings of thought, imagination, and unseen motion. Paracelsus believed that sylphs stirred the clouds and carried our ideas like feathers on the breeze. Where the air flows, so do stories, dreams, and inspiration, and sylphs were their messengers, flitting through the sky beyond the reach of words. Salamanders, the spirits of fire, were fierce and flickering. Born of flame, spark, and molten core, they danced in candlelight, raged in forest fires, and shimmered in the hearts of volcanoes. To Paracelsus, salamanders weren't just destructive. They were the force of transformation, burning away the old to make way for the new. They embodied willpower, passion, and the alchemical fire of change, lighting the way through darkness. Undines, the spirit of water, flowed through rivers, glided across the surfaces of lakes, and danced beneath the crashing waves of the sea. Feminine, fluid, and ever-changing, they represented emotion, intuition, and transformation. Undines were thought to appear as ethereal figures in foam and mist, sometimes glimpsed at the edge of perception. To Paracelsus, they were the soul of water, reflective, healing, and powerful in their ability to both soothe and overwhelm. Pygmies, which he later called gnomes, moved through stone and soil as effortlessly as we move through air. They were the guardians of deep roots, buried treasures, and mineral veins, their wisdom as old as the mountains. Gnomes lived in silence and secrecy, tending to the unseen work beneath our feet, whispering through tree roots, shaping crystals, and watching over the sleeping seeds. To Paracelsus, they were not just myth, they were the foundation of the physical world, steady and eternal. His book described how these nymphs lived, what they're made of, and how they interacted with their respective elements. Together, these spirits formed a hidden ecosystem and maintained its own elemental soul. Paracelsus didn't see them as fairy tale creatures, but as essential agents of balance, shaping the world in quiet, unseen ways. He believed these beings existed in parallel to the human world, suggesting it was possible for humans to become aware of, or even marry these beings. This understanding, the mix of early chemistry, philosophy, spiritual belief, and symbolism, was used to help understand how the universe works and how humans fit into it. This book was one of the first attempts in Europe to classify spirits systematically, not as demons or angels, but as part of the natural world that sharply rejected the common notion of the time that these nymphs were evil spirits or angels in disguise. Paracelsus was determined to relay that these elemental beings had physical form. They eat, sleep, breed, and occupy an intermediate realm between humans and pure spirits. Paracelsus's thinking blurred the lines between science, magic, and philosophy, and was an inspiration to future European fairy lore, alchemical mysticism, occult traditions like theosophy, and modern fantasy world-building. And while Paracelsus introduced gnomes as wise earth spirits, the idea that there are different types, like forest, house, or farm gnomes, evolved through European folklore, becoming popular household spirits in German and Scandinavian tales. In German tradition, gnomes would secretly help with chores during the night, but if seen, or worse, thanked, they would vanish forever. Sound familiar? That's because the concept of unseen helpers pops up in European folk traditions, like the Scottish brownies or English hobgoblins. Many cultures had household spirits, earth dwellers, or nature guardians that later blended into the idea of gnomes. The 19th century was particularly good for gnomes, as ceramic garden gnomes began popping up on lawns and in gardens around Germany, with the idea that they would protect the garden, encourage healthy crops, and guard the household from mischief. Their typical modern appearance of a red hat, beard, and a bit of a belly comes from this era. Today, gnomes are most often found in woodland gardens, cottage gardens, or whimsical settings filled with mushrooms, mossy logs, and wildflowers. You'll often find them depicted alongside toads, foxes, or snails, but there are many variations. They're still strongly tied to nature magic, and some traditions say each gnome is linked to a particular plant or tree, almost like a guardian spirit. From Kellogg's Snap, Crackle, and Pop to Romeo and Juliet, gnomes have had quite a revival in modern pop culture. They've even infiltrated the gaming world with World of Warcraft and Dungeons and Dragons. In fantasy stories, they are often portrayed as symbols of whimsy, mischief, and connection to the old ways of nature. They are skilled inventors, tinkers, or illusionists. They're curious and brainy with a love of knowledge, gears, and puzzles. Though small in size, they're big in personality, quick with a joke, clever in a tight spot, and fiercely loyal to their friends. And while I personally don't have a thing for gnomes, they are a very popular collector item. Whether it's a bearded fellow in a mushroom hat, a seasonal gnome holding a pumpkin, or a guardian of the garden giving you the middle finger, people love them as holiday decorations and quirky gifts. Realistically, what's not to love? They're cozy, a little goofy, and add a little magic to your life. And there we have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed learning about Paracelsus and his connection to the mystical history of gnomes. If you did, please give this video a like and subscribe for more cozy builds. Thanks for spending this time with me in Tiny Glade. I'll see you next time. Bye!